Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I think hopefully you're going to find this a helpful presentation. This is CCRS Implementation Guided Study, program-based CCRS support. So we're going to talk about how you can do something very specific at your program level. I'm Kristine Kelly, and I am the Atlas Literacy Coordinator. And as always, I am just thrilled to be here with my colleague and friend, Lindsey Poost.
Yes, I'm Lindsay Poost, and I am the Numeracy and Special Projects Coordinator with Atlas.
So welcome, and we are going to get started. Our agenda today, what is this resource? I'm going to give just a little bit of how we got here with the CCRS. Then we're actually going to take a look, and Lindsay's going to take you through some of the features and resources of this kind of Canvas setup. And then the big question, where can I access it? And where are all the great materials we're going to show you? And then we have a little bit of time for questions at the end. So what is this resource? Well, the college and career readiness standards for many of us have been around for a while. I think this is, wow, I think 10 years now. And just a little bit of history. A small group of us started in 2014 in Washington, D.C. To get training from Susan Pimentel, who was the writer of the Common Core and the College and Career Readiness Standards. And then we also had some training in 2015 as well. And what came from that was the CCRS ELA and Math Foundations, which we created. Many people had a hand in that. And also the CCRS implementation cohort, which is what we run every other year now. And that is something specific for program teams to go through. I know looking at the participant list that some of you are definitely going to be in the cohort with us this year. So then some more time passed, and we took CCRS ELA Foundations, and we first turned into Schoology and now Canvas. And we also still do them in person. So when Summer Institute is in person, we do ELA and Math Foundations. We do ELA Foundations at Language and Lit. And by the way, this year at Language and Lit, we are doing both ELA and Math Foundations, which is pretty wonderful. And then the cohort. And we decided that not everybody can do the cohort. And so originally we had something that was created, the CCRS PLC, and it kind of had a facilitator guide. Ann Sorens from St. Paul created the materials off of the cohort and just did a wonderful job. And then what we decided to do was, like so many of our other resources, we wanted to pivot to Canvas. And so Lindsay and I took so many of the cohort resources and some of the things that Ann Sorens did, and we created what you're going to see today. So lots of people over time have really contributed to this. So just a couple things we do want to help you be clear, like, what does the cohort have? What does this resource have? And then what do they have together? And the intro to CCRS standards, the CCRS foundations that we have, ELA and Math, is really the what and the why, and a little bit of the how of doing the standards. This is done individually on our online course or at Summer Institute or Language and Lit. And there's also a refresher webinar we usually give every other year. We have one coming up in October. We'll talk a little bit more about that for people who want a super crash course in remembering what the math shifts and practices or the ELA shifts are. And then building upon that foundation where you really learn the shifts and the practices is the implementation cohort. This is a full year intensive PD experience. And program teams go through with an administrator and a program team. It's a year-long model where we meet in person and then we also meet virtually. And it is facilitated by Atlas. The secondary option is what we're talking about today. And that is, we're going to show you that staff at a single program on your own, on demand at your own pace with somebody leading it can do this at your program level. It doesn't have to be Atlas facilitated. The materials are all going to be here for you, but it's going to be customizable. So quickly, what are characteristics of each one? So the cohort, the CCRS implementation cohort, there are some benefits to it. You do get to collaborate with other adult education program teams. So that's really nice, that people can come together, and administrators get opportunities to work together, teachers get opportunities to work together. It is more intense and the structure is set. State and local leaders facilitate with table coaches. So I'm part of it. Lindsay's part of it. We have wonderful facilitators, Astrid, Patsy, and we have table coaches to help teachers who are teaching different levels of students. It's a hybrid delivery. So again, we usually have an in-person fall 2-day training and then a spring 2-day virtual training. And a ton of CEUs are offered, and stipends are provided by Atlas. Now, what we're going to talk about today, the guided study, some of the benefits of this are its collaboration within a professional learning community at your site or a whole program team. There's a lot of flexibility, so you can set up the meetings, you can determine when assignments are due, how you want those assignments done. It's really done with local leadership. And certainly, Atlas is ready to help with any questions that you have. But somebody in your program could be leading this. It can be hybrid, it can be in person, it could be all virtual. It's really up to the program how you want to do this. You can customize the discussions. We're going to show you that. They're set in Canvas, and you can set up, as a leader, you can set up any number of reflection questions or pose questions to your team. And CEUs and pay would be determined by your program or district. Now, what they have in common, oh, Lindsay, I see you.
I just wanted to add, I put it in the chat too. One thing that I'm just realizing we missed is that there's also the opportunity to earn graduate credit by going through the cohort. 2 credits.
2 credits.
So another
Thank
incentive.
you, Lindsay. Now, what they both have in common is both the cohort and the guided study we're talking about today provide advanced CCRS work in English language arts or math. The objectives are the same. Both the cohort and the guided study have individual assignments that participants will complete. In both the cohort and guided study, there's lesson planning activities, there's observation that happens, and evaluation tools to evaluate lessons, tools to evaluate resources, and tools to evaluate student work. There are opportunities for program planning around CCRS. So whether you're part of multiple program teams who get time to plan in the cohort, obviously your program team could do some planning together. And both are related to current instructional context, resources, student levels. So the goal is that when people participate in either the cohort or the guided study, we want participants to be able to work with the materials that they're currently working with, the students that they're working with, and it needs to be job embedded. So the learning objectives, quickly, again, the same for the cohort and the guided study today. Why are we teaching CCRS? It's a reasonable question. Why? I mean, yes, in fact, it is one of three standards areas that we are required to teach here in Minnesota adult education, but there are a lot of other really good reasons. What standards should we be teaching? So when teachers ask, which one should I be teaching to my students? How do I teach the standards? How do I create a standards-based lesson or unit from scratch? What does it look like? And how can we do it more effectively? Does the work my students are producing reach the standards? If I have a lesson or an activity and what I'm getting back is not what I thought, how can I maybe revise or reframe that assignment? And what standards-based criteria should I use to select instructional resources? So if you're thinking about buying a new class set of something or you're looking at an online platform, what's a tool that you can use that will kind of tick through so that you can gauge how close it meets the standards. And the options for delivery for the resource study or the guided resource study in person. Again, you can print out materials and this can all be done in person. You can do it hybrid. So using both print and online content with synchronous and asynchronous work. Or it can all be done online. If you are a program where you have many sites and there's some distance between them, you could run this completely online through Canvas. So that was a lot of information, and now we want to really just dig in, and Lindsey is going to show you what it looks like and what's available.
Yeah, and please feel free to add questions in the chat, especially if I'm forgetting anything. But yeah, we're going to go through and navigate parts of Canvas so that you have an idea of really what it looks like. So when we're saying that, individual programs could be facilitating this and customizing it and flexibly going through it at your own pace, like who should then be leading this ideally? And it would be someone that's gone through CCRS foundations because this is really rooted in the shifts and practices. And also someone ideally that has gone through the implementation cohort because then you are familiar with the materials. So this is, one way to think of this would be when teams and programs are going through the cohort that Atlas offers, part of the implementation plans that administrators are asked to kind of work with their teachers on. It's like, how are we going to then carry this forward in our program? And maybe we're not going to be sending new teachers through this cohort every single time. So how are we going to then spread the information? This resource would be amazing for teacher leaders who have gone through the cohort to then kind of step up and take the lead. And then it could be something that is done at staff meetings periodically or et cetera, however you envision it. But it's a resource then that's ready-made and easy to implement and bring other staff on board. So one thing to think about, but also, demonstrated ability to effectively incorporate CCRS into instruction and the capacity to lead the meetings and provide feedback on assignments. So that's ideally who should be leading.
Can I add something?
Please.
So this leader for this program guided study certainly could be an administrator. We've had a lot of administrators go through the cohort, or it could be a teacher who's chosen, a lead teacher, or just someone who's teaching but has gone through and has a really solid understanding of the standards. So there's a lot of choices for who could actually lead this work.
And you'll see too that there are both ELA and math options. And so there would be opportunity to, depending on what your team looks like, address both in this guided study or to focus on one or the other. So the general module structure includes a facilitator guide, which I'm going to show you in Canvas. Every module has a slide deck already made, housed in Canvas. modeling resources. So those tools that we were talking about that are part of the cohort, they're really learning tools to kind of be able to take in and absorb all the different elements we want to be thinking about when we're thinking about CCRS aligned instruction. So with those resources, we have modeling resources that include answers and suggested answers and things like that to kind of work through. We have guided practice resources that are included and different levels of instruction. And so again, you and your team would be able to choose what makes sense, or if there's small groups happening, etc. There's some individual assignments that mirror the ones from the cohort. And then there are discussions available in each module that you would be able to customize according to what you want your teachers to be reflecting on. So with the facilitator guides, they all include objectives, meeting materials, and an agenda that has hyperlinks. So I'm going to go to Canvas and show you an example. I am going to verify. Okay, good. Just making sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so the agenda, I'm going to make it a tiny bit bigger. Includes those objectives, a snapshot of all the materials that have hyperlinks to all the pages in the course that we're talking about that you'll be using, and everything is linked to something in the course. It's not linked out to another Google folder or anything. It's linked to another page in the course, which we think will really streamline and help provide access to these materials. And then the underneath that we have an agenda that, you know, with suggested times, and again, those could be adjusted depending on what makes sense for your program. But going through, giving notes for facilitators, and then for each step along the way, being able to then refer to where which resources we're referring to. So if I were to click on like this alignment tool, it's talking about the alignment tool, and I click here, it'll bring me right to the page where I can download and have this be a print option. Download the tool here, or I can refer to it on the screen. Or we've also included editable Google Docs. So if you were to click here, then it would bring you to a link where you can make a copy so that whoever is clicking on it, now this is theirs and they can type in it. They can do whatever needs to be done. However you are asking your teachers to and administrators to interact. So we tried to give options for how to access the materials, but yet again, everything would be, there is an option where everything is housed in Canvas. So if I go back, I'm going to show some resources in a moment. And yes, okay. So that's what every module includes. We also have slide decks included for each module, so whoever is leading this doesn't have to put that together, but just familiarize themselves with the content of the slides, and some of it would be familiar because ideally they've already gone through the cohort, but we've done that for them. And there's modeling and practice included in the slides. So going over examples that we've already provided, and then also some small and large group prompts. So I absolutely love Canvas for this reason, because I don't think we were able to do this in Schoology when we had resources in Schoology, but being able to embed slides right into Canvas is helpful. So someone could project from their screen here. And this also means that participants who are going through this would have access to the slides even after the meeting if they want to review things. And so this is also a nice option because we're envisioning both facilitators and participants all in the same course. Everybody has access to everything. So I'm just gonna tick through this. There's not that many slides, but again, with those small and large group discussions, this is an activity that's straight from the cohort. Let's look at the tool. Let's familiarize ourselves with the tool. Let's talk about what we're seeing. And then we're going to look at an ELA model. And so provided this, and these resources are linked in the agenda where participants could either print them out or access them online, but this is linked in the agenda. And then going through those shifts and going through the tools and how would I rate it? And so looking at it individually, just like you would in the cohort. And there's a math model. And this is where, again, you can customize it. If you are looking at two, if you have two separate groups, if you're going to skip some slides, if you're only focusing on math or only focusing on ELA, that's up to you. But we do provide examples for both with suggestion for how that tool would be filled out. And then, sorry, almost done with that. And then we provide some small group work, some suggested small group work, where then folks could choose a level close to what they're teaching and work with a smaller group to practice using those tools with a new lesson. And then some large group coming back together to reflect. And then including information about the assignment. So all of those slides and the flow is already there for you. For each module, and then all those resources that were referred to, those model lesson materials, they're here. So here's a level C, the level C model lesson plan that again could be printed out or just accessed online. Additional materials that are referred to when working through the model. And same with the math, and then the guided practice lesson materials as well. We provide 3 different levels. So here's an AB unit lesson plan, or unit 1 to look at and apply the tools with this. There's a file that you can download that has an lesson plan materials from a level C, and then there's a level DE for this particular model. So everything is provided for you. And then the same with math. Excuse the scrolling. I'm sorry if it's making you dizzy. And then making sure, yes, I am not forgetting anything. The assignments, they are, we provided options for how to complete. And so you can, this is something that would be editable with whoever is leading it would have a teacher access to be able to edit some things, and then other participants you can just provide them a student access so they wouldn't be able to. But so if you wanted to get rid of any of these options, you could, but there's an option to annotate the document. And so we've uploaded the assignment, and in Canvas you can annotate. So there are lots of different ways to answer the question. You can click on a text box and start typing. You're able to change the font color, the size, etc. If you're highlighting certain things, you can do that. You can circle and draw. So there's just different ways that you can add comments. I think area annotation, there's one in here. This must be it. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Where you can point to something and leave a comment if they're, you know, just commenting on something. So that's one way that someone could submit their answers to the questions. Another one would be to download this copy of the tool, type it in, and then upload a file. So there's that. We've also enabled Studio, where if someone wants to just talk through their responses, if that's more their learning style, being able to record a short video of them talking through their options. And so trying to make this as accessible as possible and meeting different learning styles and needs for the assignments. So that is specifically that particular one was kind of all encompassing, regardless of if you did math or ELA, it was the same questions. But we also have, I'll just show you this, separate assignments. Like for meeting 1, it is separate. And so there's a separate ELA assignment and a separate math assignment. But again, those same options to annotate, upload a file after editing it, or submitting a video. So yeah, so we have all those ready for you. And then the last thing we have that we want to highlight, customizable Canvas discussions. And so this, again, whoever has the teacher access then is able to edit. Oops, wrong link. And so it is, there's nothing here. This is, you know, there's still the facilitator note here and the instructor note. Like this, you could all delete and then put whatever prompt in you would like to have people comment on, so that once it is the question that you would like, then people can just hit reply, and then all of a sudden it becomes a discussion board. So there is that at the end of each module that you are then able to edit.
Yeah, I like the discussion that it's a little bit easier in Canvas than it was in Schoology. And I know that I've used the discussion feature when I did the teaching reading to adults pilot, and I know Lindsay's used it as well. But it's just a really nice way, especially if you do have team members who, you know, aren't able to be in the same place. It's a great way to have an ongoing discussion, you know, with a prompt as simple as, you know, what did you learn about one of your key resources when you use the tool to evaluate it for standards alignment? So, but you can, and we'll talk a little bit about how you actually get your hands on this shortly.
Yeah, thank you. And the last thing I just want to show you is just kind of an overview of the modules. So you'll see in just a moment, well, you can see right now, not everything is checked green, which means it's not all published, it's not all complete, but it will be in September. So just so you know that that's a spoiler, we're going to share that with you soon. But starting in September, you'll be able to get your hands on the resource, but we're providing a course overview. There'll be different documents here to support the facilitator as far as the purpose of it, the suggested format. I see we still have to rename the PLC, but we will. A syllabus, sample communications to your team before and after each meeting. There'll be sample emails that you could kind of copy paste and edit and tailor as far as communicating to your team, the glossary of CCRS terms, because there are so many, and navigating all these different tools. There's a helpful document that kind of helps with that. So there'll be some support documents for facilitators, and then there are 8 modules, 8 meetings that could take 8 meetings or could take 16 meetings or could, however it's done. But with the facilitator guide, the slides, the yellow means that this is a resource, and the assignments and the editable discussion board. So that is the setup for each of the modules, going through the alignment tool, going through lesson planning, and the lesson planning template is broken into a couple meetings because it is pretty big, looking at tasks and student work, and evaluating resources. So lots of different resources here. And then the last meeting is thinking about plans for the future individually and also as programs. We are also including a few extra answer keys to certain things that would be for facilitators to access if needed. So this is, again, it's almost complete. Not quite yet, but this is the resource that we envision being able to hand off to a program. And then Kristine is actually going to talk a little bit more about that in how to access this once it is up.
Yeah, we have a little bit of tweaking left to do. Mainly, we are updating some of the resources, and so that requires us to do some new answer keys and things. And again, as I'm looking through the participant list, I'm seeing people who have been through the cohort. I see people who are set to go through this year. And again, that the idea is local leadership on this, I think, is where it really sticks. I love doing the cohort, and we've been very successful with the cohort, but doing it, I know Julie said here, as far as her program, her team already having done CCRS foundations, this could be, something ongoing throughout the year. I can also see this be used, like, say, what you really want to dig into is or review is using a tool to look at the resources that you're currently using at different levels in your program. You can certainly dig into that module. And so there's a lot of different ways you could use this, but it is, and Lindsey, I'm actually going to have you talk in just a moment, because I know you have made copies of some of your courses, which is what would happen here, so that we would make you a copy of your own Canvas course with this material that you could then work with. But this is where it's going to live, or at least where you're going to go to request access to your own course. Go to the Atlas webpage. You're going to go to resources. Yep. And then you're going to scroll down to CCR standards. And then you're going to scroll down, and here it is, the CCRS. Yep, it's right there under in that little mini menu there. And it's also going to appear to the left as well. But here it is. And a little kind of a blurb about, or a blurb, sorry, I always say blurb. It's a blurb. Click on that, and that is going to be where we're going to have the information for you. So here again is a little bit of information about that, and you can see here at the bottom in italics, available beginning September 2024. And there will actually be something there where you're going to be able to request this this resource. And Lindsey, if you want to talk just a little bit about that, because I know this is something you've been doing with other resources.
Yeah. And you just made the word of the day, Kristine. So there you go. So if you were to email, or if we have a form, however we do it, to request, hey, we would like to run this, then what we would do is make a copy of this course, and then it would be, and you would let us know which email to share it with that would need teacher access, so that there would be editing permissions, but then there wouldn't be anybody else in the course. And so you would then need to add people, and we would either provide an email about this or a short video, but there is a place when you open your course. So if this was your own copy of it, where then you can go to people, and only someone with like editing access sees that tab. Others don't see that tab if they're just participants. And you can see we've shared this with some people, but you can add people by adding their email address. And so you would add your staff, and you would select through their email, and you would select their role. They can stay students unless they need editing privileges. And then you would select next, and you'd be able, then they would get an email. It'll send them an email automatically so that then they can click on it and be able to enter the course. So that's how you would make it your own, where it wouldn't be other people around the state seeing your comments. You would have your own insulated course for your program. So after requesting it, we would give some people editing access, and then you would add the rest of the staff.
And as we said, Atlas, clearly, we will be there to support you.
Yes.
And with questions that you have, or just any part of these logistics, we're not just gonna dump it and run. We're going to we're going to be there for you. And also, oh wait, we have a comment. We meet in level teams. Very good. What you're seeing here is kind of the pattern that we're following in Atlas, for also study circles that we've had in the past that we've held, where, for example, the writing study circle that Stephanie Summers and I designed. Right now, it's being put into the same kind of usable format where there's a facilitator guide, there are slides. You could actually run a writing study circle at the program or PLC level. And we're doing that with several of our study circles. So it's kind of exciting because I'm a big proponent, again, of really, I think the biggest changes and lasting changes really happen when program teams work together and they're able to directly embed it into the work that they're doing. So it's kind of exciting about that. So let's see. We meet in level teams, just says, and set aside CCRS time. Could a group of teachers do this, or would it need to be requested at the program level? That's a really good question. I was hoping Lindsey had a quick answer.
No, I'm thinking and maybe Astrid also has input on that. I think ideally, the only thing that I can think of is I think it would be hard to go through it if no one had from the group had gone through the cohort before. I think that would potentially be difficult. Just because it would be new for everyone. But as far as does it have to be requested at the program level? Astrid, can you speak?
Astrid.
Sure, I can chime in. And I think this is the first time we've gotten this question, so I'm just, responding off the top of my head. I think, ideally CCRS implementation happens at the program level, and there is administrator support and program level support for the implementation. So I think ideally it's a program-wide effort, but that being said, if your program is structured in a way that is not conducive to moving forward as a program, I think if there is a group of teachers who want to work together and dig in, I think certainly this format could be used. You would still need to have somebody designated as the facilitator who would be leading the group through the activities and take responsibility for making that happen. And I think you'd also need administrator support in making sure that folks have the supports and the time they need to complete the work.
I think that the request for it is going to need to be done by someone at the program level in terms of perhaps an administrator or lead. That doesn't mean then that it can't be used within the program, because when we talk about PLCs, right, PLCs are small groups of teachers that are often brought together by level, by subject, by goal for that PLC. So so these are things that I think we're flexible about, and I think we're just gonna kind of We're just going to be seeing what happens. But you know, our goal obviously is to put as much good stuff in the hands of as many people as possible. So thanks for that question. We do have a few minutes for Q&A. Before we do any Q&A, you want to just tick ahead to the refresher?
Yes.
And then we have a few minutes for Q&A. Just as a reminder, this is for anyone who's been through foundations. Maybe it's been a while, it's been a few years, or you're just really interested in reviewing it, you know, in a synchronous webinar. We have a CCRS refresher on Monday, October 14th. It is virtual, and there's a link here. We will be putting these slides into Sched. 2 to 4 p.m. And I believe we will be, we're breaking out in groups. So we'll start together, and then we are going to break out into math, and we're going to break out into ELA. I'm going to be facilitating the ELA, and I believe Amber Dellinger and Jenna Hart are going to be doing the math. So, and they're going to be wonderful. So it's really to brush up, and it's for teachers, coordinators, administrators, program leaders, anyone who wants a brush up. So you're all welcome. I see we have a hand up. Amelia,
Hey.
you're going to be in the cohort.
I am in the cohort, yes. Well, I have a silly question. So I'm very new, and I mean, not as a teacher, but in ABE, and I'm working at the Department of Corrections. And I'm just wondering, so CCRS applies not to people who are only doing GED prep, but to people who are delivering instruction that leads to the adult diploma or credit recovery, or
No,
just the diploma?
The college and career readiness standards applies to all of our students at every level, from beginning ESL all the way through high adult secondary.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
It's a great question. It's not a silly question at all.
Mm-hmm.
Astrid, I'm gonna pull you in for a second to talk about that expectation of this being one of our sets of standards.
Yes, thanks for that clarification. Yes, so in Minnesota, we've adopted 3 sets of content standards that we expect all programs and students to be working towards. One of those is like as Kristine said, the CCRS, and those are for everybody at all levels. And then the other 2 sets of standards, just to mention, are the ACES Transitions Integration Framework, focused on employability skills, and the North Star Digital Literacy Standards, focusing on digital literacy skills.
Thanks, Astrid. No silly questions, Amelia. Ask all the questions.
So, okay, one more question follow-up. So how would CCRS apply to, for instance, GED prep?
Well, that's a good question. The GED actually does align quite nicely with the college and career readiness standards. And what we find is when we look at the shifts in particular, it ensures that for ELA, for example, that we are using complex enough text for students, and that we are requiring students to produce evidence in instruction, much like, you know, they're going to have to choose, for example, from multiple choice questions. It's helpful because it helps them, you know, kind of narrow down and choose answers. And building knowledge is another shift. It's the third shift of the ELA standards. And we certainly want to be building some knowledge. If we do a lot of just crash courses like social studies, GED, tonight we're going to do World War II, and today, and then tomorrow we're just going to do all of the, you know, the rest of the 20th century. When we build around like big topics or big questions, students tend to retain the information and learn the information better. So that's something you'll learn in the cohort. But certainly students, if you're designing your instruction around the CCRS standards, students should be able to take those skills. They will be able to take those skills and apply them to the GED. I did it for many, many years, and I saw students improve on their reading and their writing for the GED. Absolutely. And Lindsey can speak to the math.
Yeah, definitely. I think too, more and more of the assessments that we're asked to use with students, they're being increasingly better aligned to the CCRS standards. And so, yeah, it's really the underlying academic skills in this graphic. I was trying to figure out where we have it, but the underlying academic skills, they really target those, and then those we see pop up in so many different assessments, but also life in general. So,
Oh, and also the TABE tests and CASAS goals and CASAS steps were built around these standards. So they are directly aligned with the college and career readiness standards.
that was fun. I'm glad you asked that question. I got to go
Me
find a
too.
new graphic.
Aha, after September, that information will be on that page, and likely it's going to be me, Julie.
And we will have something alerting, I assume, in the newsletter when it's ready, like, and it's ready now. You can bombard Kristine with emails.
Yes, there is going to be, I'm sure there's going to be a news flash. So, and if in doubt, go to the Atlas website and just email me, get my email me directly, ask me anything. And Astrid, the September web chat. So attend those web chats. That's where you get some really valuable information from MDE. So with that, I think we've come to our time. We can certainly hang on for another minute, or you can go ahead and email one of us. But we want you to use these materials. We want you to do this locally, and we want to support you in doing so. So thank you for attending today.
Yes, thank you.